processors, Mr. Modest who you referenced to, have challenges paying his electricity bill just for making a few little packs of things. That is what we're trying to achieve, Mr. Deputy President. We are trying to bring the energy cost down so that those sectors can grow. So that persons can, if they decide they're going to do manufacturing, by the time they're crunching numbers, the expenditure side should not be 80%, should not be electricity or energy. It should not be. And that is what we are trying to do when the electricity supplier, by us bringing that supplier in. This has nothing to do with anybody personally. This is about Grenada, and this is about creating that opportunity, seeing that long-term vision, that once we do that and we open it out, it can help drive the cost down, allow for different mixes in terms of energy mixes so that we can get the energy done in this country, Mr. Deputy President. And this is the same thing that was done in the telecom sector. And we get rare blows. Not only blows, we were taken to court on every occasion. We said, Deputy President, every occasion. The government were taken to court on the telecom side, and we were taken to court on the electricity side. I don't know who was the liar, Mr. Somebody asked me who was the liar. I don't know who was the liar. I really don't know, honestly. I can't tell you who was the liar. Maybe I think I know for the Grand Lake side, but I don't know for the telecom side. I don't know if it's the same liar. I don't know. But that is insignificant in this context, but significant in another context. In the context that it is insignificant in the context that this is about the people of Grenada, what we're trying to do, we're trying to create opportunities for them. Whoever decide to work against that, they will have to deal with that on their own conscience. Yeah. Mr. Deputy President, the PROC has been working and a suite of regulations have been already developed and prepared and passed on codes to help get the sector moving. We have thus far 58 self-generator licenses have been issued. Thus far 58 persons are actually generating their own electricity on the whole. So this is significant. This could not have happened before. It just could not happen before if we did not acquire. It just couldn't happen in the context of how we are doing it. And so we are seeing more kilowatt on the renewable energy side add to the grid. And as we move forward, this will continue to expand, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, the leader of government business would have spoke on the issue of how in this COVIDious time, Mr. Deputy President, we had some significant challenges in getting mail into the state. A lot of our mail was stuck, I think, in Barbados for months. We had LIAT going down and we couldn't get our mail here, so that posed some challenges for us. And what we are seeing, that is also driving us faster in terms of making improvements on our operational side, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, we are working on an important project called the FETAF project. It's a software that we have already procured that would digitize the Greater Postal Corporation. And this will help on the financial services side, so persons can come to the post going forward to pay utility bills as another area for paying utility bills, even taxes in the Postal Corporation. So that is an important project that we are working on currently, moving into 2022. Mr. Deputy President, also another important project is a disaster risk management project that we are working on, just to ensure that the mill operates in times of disaster. That's something critical that we are trying to ensure that the corporation still functions in that regard, Mr. Deputy President. So these are two of the major projects that I just wanted to highlight under the Postal Corporation. So, Deputy President, I don't have much time, but I have to touch on agriculture, and the clerk will give me, I have the last 5 minutes, because I have some other matters I just want to touch on. Mr. Deputy President, it is clear that, and in the words of Senator St. Clair, we are making improvements. I didn't say that. Those were his words. Those were the words of the senator representing the farmers. He said that we have issues, but we are making improvements. We are seeing strides. We are making headways. He said, the President, that is significant. That is significant. We have and continue to make significant investment in the sector. And the Minister for Agriculture must be commended for his efforts, because one of the challenges that agriculture is having is the changes. There's a shift in human resource. So when you have persons retiring, agriculture is not a very easy area to fill. It's not a very easy area to fill as one may think. Very few persons, when they're in secondary schools or leaving secondary school, have an inclination to study in that sector. And that has nothing to do with the government of Grenada. We make every effort to provide the necessary support for the sector. It's a sector that receives the most subsidies. The most subsidies is received by farmers and fishing sector. 75% on vehicles, concession on equipment. I mean, you nail it. And we are saying that they deserve it. We are not saying that they deserve it. But the sector is not a sector it's a specialized sector. And there are so much specialities within the sector that so somebody may leave and they may go and study agronomy, but you have an area that is not filled, veterinary, or even pests, or even quarantine, or even soil. And somebody may go and study and just study small ruminants and not be able to look after cattle. So that is how diverse the sector is. So it's not as simple as sometimes how the member roll it out. It's not as simple. He mentioned about bees, there's so much areas. There's mechanics, agriculture mechanics, there's machinery, there's so much. So, Mr. Deputy President, we are making strides, and the Minister of Agriculture is working to see how we can fill that void in terms of the development of the sector. But most notably, Mr. Deputy President, we had a growth, Mr. Deputy President. But no mention was made of that. I didn't hear the member say that the sector grew last year. He didn't say that. I think that is an injustice to the farmers. They should know that the efforts be a benefit for this country. They should know that. And that should be seen, that should be said, that the sector grew by almost 10%. And even contracting by 12% in the previous year. Mr. Deputy President, I think I'll know what I'll do today. I will represent the farmers today. I will represent the farmers. I will speak about the good things, the benefits for them today. I think maybe the rep didn't get enough time. So I will use some of my time to do that. Mr. Deputy President, we think this is significant. And then we are also forecasting an 8.4% growth for next year. This is significant. We are heading in the right direction. As regards to the family labor program, Mr. Deputy President, the farmers play an integral part in the selection of the workers in the program. The member didn't say that. Because some of the work that the farmers require is technical. So they want to ensure that the person who is coming on the farm knows what they're doing and not coming to destroy the crops. So we just don't send anybody on people's farm like that. The farmers have a role in that. That was not mentioned. Mr. Deputy President, over 2,000 short-term jobs was created. Over 550 farmers were impacted from this program. Over 800 acres were tended to in this program. I think this is significant. And the program is going to increase by 1.8 million. I just wanted to correct the member. That's the increase, 1.8. Well, we'll sort it out afterwards. But those are the facts. 1.8. Yeah, 1.8. Yeah. 1.8 million, Mr. Deputy President. Yeah. Yeah, you might look again, check again, double check. Mr. Deputy President, the livestock sector, significant work has been done in the livestock sector. We're working to get Laura Farm to be the epicenter for nucleus for breeds and for persons to come there to get the breed stock and to move forward with their development. This is critical, Mr. Deputy President, because if you don't understand how this is done, and I think a lot of times I hear people talking about agriculture, so they don't even know how wide the spacing to plant, maybe even lettuce, but they're talking about agriculture. They don't even know. You know, they hear somebody talk about it and they just jump on it. Mr. Deputy President, the work that is taking place in agriculture is complex. It's a complex industry. It's a complex sector. We have a number of issues which we are working, and there are a number of successes. So we are developing that, and I'll speak to the financing just now, Mr. Deputy President. Yeah. I'll speak to the financing. Under the pest control, we are making significant investment in the pest control for the cotton scale. Significant investment. The member didn't speak about that. You briefly scale over it. Briefly. This is an improvement for the farmers. We have over 30,000 beetles for the biological control. We have pruning, we have cultural control, and we have also chemical control taking place, Mr. Deputy President. As regards to the financing, Mr. Deputy President, and I think this is a critical area, and I just want to make mention of it. And they spoke about GDB. Based on my reports from GDB, Mr. Deputy President, over $2.5 million thereabout in loans were given out to the agriculture sector. But Mr. President, Mr. Deputy President, I wouldn't want to speak on the delinquent side. Because see, there are core issues with lending that is not been mentioned. And previously, government would have invested in the sector with a lot of grant support for the sector, and those funds were used otherwise. And a number of times, persons get the support and they don't use it. So sometimes when you hear GDB asking you for certain information, that is not to turn you away, but that is to help forecast and to help plan to ensure that whatever you're borrowing and what you're borrowing it for, you could come out successfully on the other side. That is all. Those information is to help the applicant, not to deter the applicant. It's for you to understand, it's for the applicant to understand that, look, if we're giving you $5, remember you have all these other commitments. But your business and your personal commitments, your financial commitments is not separate. We understand, we are farmers. So you're telling me that the money that is generated from your farm, what is the farmer using for? He's not going to meet some of his personal home commitments, Mr. Deputy President. He's going to pay a liability. If his daughter come and they say, Daddy, I have subjects to pay for, he's dependent on that crop, the yield from that crop, to help pay for the daughter's subjects. So everything is interconnected, and that is all that the bank is trying to do. But we would have made other changes, other improvements through the Small Business Development Fund, which is much more softer, the requirements are softer, which are numerous farmers and fishermen have received support under. But we haven't heard about that. We haven't heard about that. Mr. Deputy President. We haven't heard about that at all. He just glossed over that. So I'll speak for the farmers today, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, in terms of pre-deal larceny, every request we have done, we have made improvements, we have come to this honorable house, new legislation to improve, to provide support, and we continue to provide support. In the supplementary, we put in $100,000 supplementary. We have been working, but this is a complex issue, Mr. Deputy President. And one of the biggest challenges that is affecting pre-deal larceny and even the sector is the lack of the farming community not organizing. Where are the associations, Mr. Deputy President? We don't have any associations. I think Carriacou have one. But the failure for the farming sector to come together as a unit is making it even more difficult for them to make use of the resources that we have, and even for us to even to planning and moving forward. Mr. Deputy President, one of the things I learned in any institution, if everybody wants what they want, that is a recipe for disaster. So when you're planning for a sector, it's important that you come together as a unit, and I think that is one of the biggest gaps. I do hope, I know the member supporting agriculture is doing a fantastic job, Mr. Deputy President. I must admit that he's doing a good job. He's working. He's working and he's looking out for his colleagues. I can say that about him. I can say that. But there are deficiencies that the government of Grenada, we cannot be responsible for. We are there to facilitate, we can help, but they have to come together. And that is, the community is big. Oh, despite all the efforts of the RGPF, people are still breaking, drugs is still running, not so? That should tell you something. Why do you believe that the RGPF could solely just solve pre-deal larceny, which is basically stealing? It's just stealing a different commodity, but it's stealing. The community have to help, the family community have to, and so when we're suggesting things like technology, that is not to remove the RGPF efforts, but to complement it. So I just want to underscore that those measures, Mr. Deputy President. There are a couple other things that I want to touch on, and mention has been made. He said, Mr. Deputy President, oh, we have the ice machines. When you say it, but say that 30 new ice machines is going to be procured. Why are you not saying it? Why are you not saying it? Why is he holding it back and just gloss over it and then go on to something else? So the fishermen must know that 30 ice machine coming. Yes. So I just want to touch on that, Mr. Deputy President. There are a few other things that I want to mention. You know, just quickly, just going back to my dear colleague Senator, since you mentioned about the whole issue, Empower, you know, this allegation that there might be something taking place. I want to beg to differ. Thank you very much for that 5 minutes. I want to beg to differ, Mr. Deputy President, because you see, Mr. Deputy President, this government, we give people a second chance. And if somebody, for some reason, fall out or drop out of the program, that should not be a reason for them not getting an opportunity to get back in. We give people a second chance. So I do not have, and we do not have an issue if somebody fall out of our program and you see them come back in the program. We give them a second chance. That is what we do. We reach out to young people, we give them a second chance, Mr. Deputy President. So I want to signal that. Mr. Deputy President, my dear colleague, Senator McQueen, said that the budget was a document of deception. That one was a very strong one. And she said, through you, Mr. President, that we're brambling Grenadians. Mr. Deputy President, we didn't bramble the Imani trainees in 2008. We didn't bramble them. They know who brambled them, who promised them that they wouldn't send them home, and they were sent home. We didn't bramble them. We never brambled them. We expanded the program, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, we didn't bramble the public servants. And the representative for the labor sector is here. Between that period, they didn't even receive no increases. We didn't bramble them. We didn't pay them on the 40th day of the month, Mr. Deputy President. We didn't bramble them. We didn't bramble them. Mr. Deputy President, we didn't bramble our senior citizens. We never promised them $400 and then pay them. We never brambled them. We expanded their services. And those are the facts. We are not brambling our public servants because they're going to get, the frontline workers, they're going to get what is due to them. Although some persons are hoping, Mr. Deputy President, that is what is worrying me. With all this support, and we say that we thank the frontline workers, but they are hoping that the Ministry of Finance can get the extra salary to them before the end. They're hoping, Mr. Deputy President, that is what is worrying. That is where the bramble is, and that is where the deception is, Mr. Deputy President. I think it was important that we single that out. Mr. Deputy President, I think I have about 2 more minutes, but I just want to close on my dear colleague, Senator Joseph. Senator Joseph said going green is going blind. I have to drink some water on this one. I want to speak softly, Mr. Deputy President. I want to speak softly. I don't want, the last time I spoke, I was meant that if I was harsh and loud. I want to speak very softly and nicely. But the Hansard can verify, Mr. Deputy President. He said going green is going blind. And I could tell you, that was in relation to a presentation by my colleague, Senator Cadet, when he spoke about the change in priority from fossil fuel to going green. Those were your response. I think you could recollect now. But Mr. President, Mr. Deputy President, going green, you know what that meant for us? Millions of dollars in climate change grant funding. That is what that meant for us. But I think, most importantly, Mr. Deputy President, going green really and truly brought us 15 seats 3 times. So, going green is not going black. Mr. Deputy President, it's a lack of understanding of governance. I think that is where the issue is. So when Senator McQueen said that the budget is a budget of deception, that led Senator Joseph to say through you, Mr. Deputy President, that we have what? We have more grant, the government is run by grant financing, more grant financing than revenue generated in the country. Mr. Deputy President, that is 10 times wrong. Only 24% of the 2022 budget, only 24% is accounted for grants. 1 minute. Mr. Deputy President, there's a lot more I could say, but I'll just say one last thing, Mr. Deputy President, and that has to do with depushing. It has been a discussion in several quarters, and mention was made that we're making it feel as if if the debushers wouldn't get engaged if government changed. Mr. Deputy President, that is not the issue. The bushers are not worried about that, They're worried that if government changes, they're going to get paid, Mr. Deputy President. That's what the problem is. That's what the problem is. So I just want to leave on that note. Because you see, Mr. Deputy President, this government has continued to keep this country safe during this pandemic and also meet our financial obligations for the most part, and to be able to reward our frontline workers and all our public servants to some extent. And I think that is a remarkable achievement during this pandemic time, and we must be applauded for that. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Cox. Members, I want to adjourn the chamber for 5 minutes so that the chair could have a washroom break, and then we come back right after. Lunch is not ready yet, so we'll take one more. Senator Lewis, you'll go next, and then we break for lunch. Okay? Senate now stands adjourned for 5 minutes.
I want to also just give a little more extensive feedback on the St. John's River. I know I did spoke about it the last time I engaged the public, but to speak more specifically on the works to be done there. There are some other works that we have not tendered as yet, and I think it's important to speak to it as well. So what we have tendered out so far is just the main river course to be done between both creative design and Sunrise Construction. But we have 3 other works, important packages to be done thereafter, and we'll be getting some more feedback on that as we move forward into 2022. And that has to do with the reconstruction of both the Humback Bridge and the bridge by Steels Auto. Additionally, the roadway, the entire roadway along the riverbank will be redone. So that is a 1.35 kilometer roadway that will also be reconstructed. That road, based on the engineers' analysis and their investigative work, the road will be lifted, allowing for deeper drainways and a more suitable roadway to deal with the impacts of what would have happened in the past in terms of the climate impacts, and for us to respond properly to those negative challenges when we had the flooding with the river. So we're looking at both those are the other 3 packages that have not been tendered as yet. So those will be tendered soon, so the public will have sight of that when we ready to do that. So just to give some indication of the works that will take place at the St. John's River, what it consists of desilting the river, removing debris and excess sediments in the river, construction of the riverbank with retaining walls on both sides of the river, and some of it you can see now currently being done. Stabilizing and repairing of existing river walls. So what would have happened is that we didn't just tear down all the existing walls that are there. What would have happened is that work would have done in terms of investigating the integrity of those walls to see whether or not they are suitable to remain or remove. So some of it was suitable and strong enough, so we retained those, and those that were not, they were removed. Repairing and protecting the existing river walls, so that is what we have done as well. Other works consist of the road alignment, so that is one of the things that we'll be looking at in terms of changing the shape of the meandering of the river to help with a smoother flow of water. We had some sharp curves which was not suitable and which aided in the flooding as well, so that is going to be reworked. And then you have repaving of the entire roadway. So those are some of the things that we have as key deliverables for that project. In in terms of the project timeline of activities, I think it's important that we give this update. And so construction work would have commenced in August on packages 3 and 4, and that is expected to complete it in February of 2022. So that is Sunrise Construction package. We expect them to complete that February of 2022 once no major delays or issues regarding that project. The construction work on packages 1 and 2 scheduled to commence this month. Based on information, I think the commencement agreement or commencement letter have been issued. So once that is done, creative design will start mobilizing, and we expect to see some movements on their end this month, and that is expected to complete in April of 2022. Tendering for packages 5 and 6, that is to do with the bridges. We will be in November of 2021, so we're expecting some tendering process for those packages, so persons who are interested can pay attention to that when that go out in the public domain, and to commence work in January of 2022 that is for the bridges. And package 7, which is the roadway, that will be also tendered in this month, November of 2022, with construction to commence in January and to complete in May of 2022. So these are the updates for the St. John's River. I think it's important that we give some more detailed information today so that persons can get an appreciation for where we are and how we are moving forward with those important works.
Stay up to date and informed with the latest developments in Grenada while on the go. Subscribe to the Government Information Services social media platforms. Get updates on your mobile devices for our live programs, news, media conferences, and much more. The Government Information Service, keeping the people of Grenada informed on the go.
Count me, because we all count.
Count all of us. Nothing about us without us.
Count me.
Count me.
Side resumes. Santa Louis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy President. And good. It's sort of fuzzy in my glasses when I use this. So thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy President. And Labour's response to the budget 2022. First of all, to you, Mr. Deputy President, I wish to, on behalf of Labour, salute the working class of Grenada, the workers of Grenada, who continue to lead the fight against COVID-19 and the various variants that has been wreaking havoc on our people. We wish to extend our deepest condolences to all who lost loved ones and all who were impacted one way or the other by the pandemic. We salute especially our frontline workers. And here we speak of police, prison, nurses, doctors, sanitation workers, grocery store workers, gas station workers, for the commitment that they continue to demonstrate. We also congratulate the relevant ministries for the job done during this particular period. This has not been an easy time. It is a novel challenge. Yes, we are almost 2 years into it, but the different challenges keep changing from time to time. Mr. President, we in Labour welcomes the cost of living measures advocated in this 2022 budget. Here we speak particularly of the $15 cap on fuel. This is welcome news. However, we go further by recommending that at least $3 should have been removed from the tax on gas. So what do I mean? If you look at the average of the fuel prices between 2012 and 2018, 2021, you will find that in 2012, the average was $16.21. In 2013, it was $15.83. 2014, $15.31. 2015, $13. 16, $13.31. 2017, $14.42. 2018, $15.54. 2019, $14.99. 2020, $13.12. And so far in 2021, $15.88. We are suggesting that if you remove that $3, what it will do. So for instance, if we use the $15 cap, we will only recognize that benefit when currently, as it stands right now, the basic gas price without the taxes will have to be $9.50 at the pumps, because $9.50 and $5.50 will give you $15. So we are proposing a standardized reduction, and we are also calling on the government to publish the real price, even as it is capped at 15, to publish the real price at the changes, at the point of the change, so that we can recognize and follow what is it that government is giving up. So I've made two proposals here. One for a standardized reduction in terms of the keeping the cap at 15, but removing a further, let us say taking $3 off the $5.50. And even as you have the $15 cap, please publish to us what the real price will be so we can follow. We want to once again applaud the government for putting money in the hands of workers. And here we speak of the extra bonus or the extra pay that will be given this month. Because this is what will help money circulate in the economy. At the end of the day, colleagues, working class people, we spend. There's not enough for saving because most workers are hand to mouth, meaning that you live from paycheck to paycheck. And therefore, given the demise that has taken place in the rural economy through the collapse of agriculture in the rural economy, this extra money for December and come the first quarter of next year, if all the monies are not paid now in terms of what you call the frontline workers that you have to work out, because there's a provision for that, the additional set of police and nurses and doctors that are the established frontline workers. These monies will go into the rural economy because a lot of workers are rural based. And the shopkeepers will tell you, if you visit Willis, if you visit Ladig, if you visit Tivoli, they will tell you that when workers get pay, you can see the economic activities in the community, and therefore this move must be applauded. Right? A lot of monies are spent elsewhere that we condemn and we complain about. There's absolutely nothing wrong in spending money, putting money in the hands of ordinary working people. I want to establish that. As a matter of fact, we go further to ask that this payment be made annually. In other words, it be made standard. It be made standard so that government workers, public sector workers, will know that they can look forward to receiving a bonus or an extra month's pay or half month's pay every year. Something that you call the 13th month salary pay, as has been done in quite a number of private sector companies. That can be done. At the same time, Labour calls on the workers to be prudent in your spending, to be careful in your spending. Please do not spend everything for the Christmas. Please save a little. Please put something, for instance, in a credit union. Please, small as it is, put away something. We see the private sector, through you, Mr. Deputy President, following the lead of the government, and I say the Prime Minister, relative to the call for vaccination. We use this opportunity to call on the private sector to follow the request of the Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister, and other government officials in paying an extra pay to the private sector workers this year. Please follow that lead. So we are making that call and that plea for all workers to be paid something extra. Turning now to the budget in particular, we will look at the budget in the following context: immediate and short-term goals of workers. And in this context, I want to identify the following: employment, unemployment, safety net, poverty issue, job security, pension, health insurance, health care, because you can have good health care without health insurance, job training, job upgrading, children's education, cost of living issues, wages and salaries, and housing. So when we examine the budget, all of these things are intertwined, and there are some things that will be more priority areas, but that will be what we call short-term and medium-term. And the budget have identified those aspects too. In terms of what they call the strategic objective, poverty elimination, resilience to external economic shock, household income transformation, building a knowledge economy. And colleagues, building the knowledge economy will help to address poverty elimination and household income transformation. Because knowledge economy is another way of human development. And this will be key. This will be key as we transcend beyond the challenges, or as we continue the challenges of COVID-19. We need to ensure that we develop our human knowledge and we prepare our people to be resilient. And therefore, we need to examine everything in this context. We also look at agriculture, agro-processing, fisheries, and fish processing as key factors, Senator, for agriculture, in addressing the issue of resilience. Let us now turn to some specific areas in the budget speech. So if you look at page 8, of the budget speech, the fourth paragraph, which starts with recurrent, that's under fiscal performance. So if you look at page 8, and we see here, I'll just briefly, 1, 2, 3. It says here, recurrent spending has remained high due in part to greater outlays on wages, salaries, and pensions associated with the implementation of the 4% salary increase for public officers. Mr. Deputy President, through you, I know we are addressing 2020, 2021. It takes us immediately to the point that we ought not to have gone through the industrial fight that we had earlier this year to get what is due to the workers, the 4% increase for 2021. And I'll tell you, you found $200 million to pay Grand Lake. I put on my glasses. I listen. Thanks, my brother. Thanks for reminding me. Through you, Mr. Deputy President. Through you, Mr. Deputy President. So we'll do the circuit. We'll do the circuit. I know you can't help it. Can't help it. We have
Sorry,
to march in the rain.
Sorry, Andre. Keep this side talk to a minimum, senators. Please.
To be frank with you, he helps me with those comments. So please don't stop him. Please. Through you, Mr. Deputy President. Yes? We had to march in the rain, in the sun, witness the arrest and detention of the President of the Grenada Union of Teachers when he was visited in his home on a Saturday afternoon. Over what? Fighting for what is legitimately his. And at a time when now we pay everything, right? We found the monies to pay and we congratulate the monies that are going into to workers' hands. Not only this, through you, Mr. Deputy President, it has been reported many times and said many times by government officials that they could not have afforded to pay the 4% increase because it will work out to roughly just about $1 million or thereabouts per month. And they had to go through a third party to buy the bonds, to pay workers, because it will cost close to, because 7 or so months, $8 million. But hear what? And if I'm wrong, someone can correct me. What ARISA paid out and what we are aware of was about $4 million. This is important because as we address the issue of trust, this is important. Because many times we sit around the negotiating table, and when figures are branded at us, and we ask for direct and specific information, we are not able to get it. It is important because as we confront 2022, through you, Mr. Deputy President, and as the Senator Philip called for more collaboration, we are always willing to work together, but trust is important. And therefore, it is important to bear in mind that this fight that the workers in the public sector were forced to go into could have been avoided. We believe strongly so that this was guided by arrogance and vindictiveness. When we look at everything else, that's what we believe. When we look at the paragraph 5, that's on the same page, on the capital expenditure side, we recognize that the targeted PSIP implementation rate of 80%, that is commendable. That is commendable. But at the same time, we wish to request to be provided with a list of the projects implemented between July and November of 2021. And we can't help, as we look at managing costs and reducing waste, we will not like to see a repeat in any of the project as what the public observed in Laborie, when you recognize that significant work was done there and they had to redo it over where drains were actually built in the road, etc. Paragraph 6, which says by year end, relative to the 2020 performance, there's an overall surplus, Mr. Deputy President, of 62.7 million. We would like to know how much actual cash is in the accounts and what are the accounts. In other words, how many accounts are there and the balances in the accounts. We would like to know that. We go to page 9, public debt dynamics. We would like to know, we have looked at what will be our Grenada's position upon the end of the grace periods, since several loans will mature around the same time. We need a schedule of loans from January 2020 to present, the interest rate and the repayment period. We look now at unemployment and poverty. That's page 9. We recognize that the poverty figure given was for 2018, which moved from 2008. In 2008, it was 37% to about 37.7% to 25% in 2019. Sorry, 2019. We still believe that this is alarming, and given the challenges, that was in 2019. So given the challenges of 2020 and 2021 with COVID, and that's understandable, it is expected, unfortunately so, that the poverty rate will significantly increase. This therefore calls for targeted intervention. I want to repeat this. This calls for targeted intervention, and even during the good times, if there were good times, we all knew that the poverty rate was higher in some of the rural areas, some of the old parishes. And we think it would be reasonable to make an assumption that it will be much worse now. And we all know the negative social fallouts that this can have. Bearing in mind that traditionally, and unfortunately so, and wrongly so, our female population has been most significantly hit by poverty. And bearing in mind that unemployment has been significantly high and highest among the female population and even among the youth. But what is striking is the fact that a cursory observation will show that quite more of our female population is engaged in higher learning. And these are some of the challenges that we must take collectively as a people, not only government, because I dare say all of us who lead different organizations and who have different interests in the communities have a responsibility to help address those issues. Right? So it is not only at the doorstep of government, but it is a scourge that we all must work against, because these are also related to the issue of domestic violence. Because there is the issue of reverse domestic violence, where, for instance, because especially during the lockdown period, and my dear Senator Tessa Sincere, Dr. Sincere, you have earned this, you have earned that rank. It is not something that was awarded to you, you have earned it, and therefore I'll refer to you as doctor from time to time, Senator. I've spoken of these, and you'll find that when the unemployment rate increases and a number of our citizens are now at home, both male and female, you find that, and you can't go outside, you can remember there were restrictions. There have been a number of challenges, a number of domestic challenges. But the unemployment rate has also been contributed to by the policy on vaccination, because a number of places have failed to work with workers to try to find that cushion of managing the challenges of COVID-19. Barbados has done that quite successfully. At some stage, they may have to change gear. The labor movement, organized labor, and that's one of the advantages of being in organized labor. We have been able to push back at a number of companies that were looking to implement mandatory vaccination by given dates. But through our dialogue with them, and they are significant workplaces. We have more challenges in different workplaces, yes. But in most, the vast majority of workplaces, we have been able to successfully address those matters through collaboration. And there is no doubt that a number of people are at home because some employers have insisted that if you're not vaccinated, you can't come back to work. Even if, for instance, the public visit those places and frequent those places without being vaccinated. Yes? This has happened. To you, Mr. Deputy President, I have question who is the lawyer. What I do know is that a government have a policy in which certain SROs have gone out, which has made it mandatory for people to be vaccinated. So, to you, Mr. Deputy President, I heard something when I asked who is a lawyer. What I do know is that what has been advanced by a number of workplaces that we have been engaged in is that the SRNOs from the government that has given them deadlines to implement vaccination has resulted in that position. Yes. So I don't know if the government is a lawyer. Yes? Yes. Mr. Deputy President, through you, we go to we look at page 11, the strategic objectives of the government, and the strategic objective, page 11, and they are commendable strategic objective. we must see. And I would just like to read them out. Building economic sustainability, improving service delivery in the healthcare sector, accelerating food and nutrition security, developing human capital, preserving and expanding social safeguards, protecting environmental assets, and building resilient infrastructure. But what is key to achieve those strategic objectives is what do we do? And therefore, that is where the development in the human knowledge comes into play. This is where the development and the focus on what we call modern agriculture comes into play. And I'm very pleased to hear some of the discourse that have taken place. What we need to move to now is implementation of some of those ideas. We have always advanced that we are not wanting for ideas. And probably in some of these technical areas, through you, Mr. Deputy President, I'm not sure if I may be out of place to probably suggest the direct involvement of our dear Senator colleague, Nolan Cox, to help achieve some of those things in terms of implementation. I've said openly before that you know, this approach taken must be commended, but we need those implementation in those areas that can find that link between our education system and preparing for the world of work. And I know these are challenges time, but here what happened. Senate, it was said to you, Mr. President, that agriculture is not a simple fix. It is a highly specialized area. So you have people studying, and when they come back, they may not be able to fit in what is available. But that is where planning comes into place. And that is where training. And therefore, whenever we get scholarships, we need to ensure that the scholarships that we get engaged in are designed in such a way so that when our people come back, they can fit into that plan. This is where labor wants to see us going. That will reduce unemployment. And in reducing unemployment, it also creates the avenue for unionization of workers as they look for representation. So we need to plan with those things in mind. We must not just say that we got 50 scholarships. And then when the people come back, they have to do something else that is not aligned with their skill. That's where planning comes into place. In analyzing the theme towards Vision 2035, protecting lives, safeguarding livelihoods, and investing for growth and resilience, we have to look at, is this a reflection of the Grenadian reality? And does it show up existing skills gaps similar to what I've piggybacked on from the point raised by Senator Cox in relation to agriculture? Because not only do we see that in agriculture, we see that through the fact that many times, especially even in health, it's a point we have made many times before, we have to bring in consultants. And we have had we have scores of Grenadians from the days of the revolution to now. Scores of Grenadians studying medicine, getting scholarships, going abroad and studying. And we are yet to have certain specialized areas where we have cardiologists, through government scholarships. So we need to go into an arrangement which says, look, we are going to give you a scholarship for 7 years or even for 10 years. You specialize in this area. When you come back, you ensure that you have a job with us. And it's not just about, I know it is called traditionally, you have a bond. You can pay off a bond, right? We ensure that you have proper housing. In other words, let us invest. It's an investment in the human people, the human resources. And there's absolutely nothing wrong in telling 4 or 5 people where you need highly specialized areas that you do not want people to get up like the nurses who are not made permanent. And the nurses have terrible working conditions, so they leave and they go. Let us invest in these highly specialized areas guarantee these individuals that they will come back, get housing, get different allowances, make their life relatively comfortable so that they can stay here and serve the people. Let's do this. Let us take this as a project. Let us take this as a project, and I'm sure we can do it. I'm absolutely certain that we can do it. We look at the outlook, page 11, outlook for 2022. We applaud the projected growth rate of 4.5%, even in this challenging time. Bearing in mind that next year, as everything else, can be filled with a number of uncertainty. But the bigger challenge that we have is that we are still in a pandemic. And I'm using this occasion, this opportunity, to call on all of us to do all that is necessary to help mitigate the impact of the virus. Let us follow the protocol. Let us wear our masks. Let us sanitize, physical distances, and let us vaccinate, right? As a choice of ours. Because all depends on what we do. All the plans that we have can fall flat on its belly next year. And it will be the people that stands to lose the most and feel it the most are the working class people. Or we the workers. We fall in these categories. And that is why you'll find us so passionate. Not emotional, passionate about the issues that we try to address from time to time. We know the people that calls out for assistance, and that is why we applaud once again, as I said, the resources, the monies that are going to be placed in workers' hands this year. This cannot be underestimated. And I can tell you the level of anticipation and enthusiasm that has been felt outside there. This in itself is psychologically important for the country. We go now to the page 12, expenditure rationalization measures, and we applaud the approach to make certain payments online. We have to congratulate those activities, those initiatives. And bear with me, I should have said that at the start, but it is not too late to say it. Better I say it now than later on. We wish to commend the workers in the Ministry of Finance for the work that they continue to do. All workers in the government service, the policy unit in particular. Yes? And we are aware to put this thing together and even to work on to ensure that workers get paid before the end of the year takes a lot of work, and they are rising to the task. So we commend them and applaud them for this. Yes? In relation to bullet point number 5, that is on page 12, where the government speaks of, that will be page 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, where it says about address weaknesses in the expenditure control. We would like to see an explanation or advance. What do you intend to do to address these weaknesses? It has been identified. We know that this is a budget speech, right? And you will not go into everything, but we also think that it is important to move to the next stage of budget presentation where there can be more analysis being done. So, for instance, you said that you identify weaknesses in the system. It would be great to tell us what you have identified to be able to help address these weaknesses. It will also be good, through you, Mr. Deputy President, that as we speak about the investment in infrastructure, so for instance, roads, agriculture, to get an analysis which speaks about the contribution of the roads to agriculture, what percentage of that road is going towards enhancing agriculture? What percentage is enhancing what we call regular travel? Because remember, there's a multiplicity of use. Because what you may find, as we have observed in the past, that quite a number of farm road projects where you get some of the better roads, once these things have been done, it leads to real estate development. So there is that contradiction. Understanding that these are private property, understanding that the government will have a challenge in telling private citizens what to do with their land. A land use policy, which only recently I've heard talk about again, which has been spoken about for a number of years, which has been one of the plank or pillars of the 2020-2035 plan to address those issues, are extremely important. Because what we may find happening is that as we get the assistance and we build the farm roads, and the intention in terms of a policy position is to contribute to agricultural development, which builds resilience, what it may do is to lead to a higher level of poverty. Because here what may happen. The pandemic has shown us the importance of food security. The pandemic has shown us about the importance of having our resources locally to develop our local resources. Because as we were not able to travel over the past few months, and as there are issues with shipping, and there were lockdown with flights, and certain goods were not able to come into the country, and if they came in, they come in extremely high, at high cost because of transportation costs. If we are able to develop our agriculture sector, it leads to what we call food security and the development and advancement of resilience. And in keeping with the theme, resilience is important. So that is why it's important to pay attention to these factors. We express our concern, or almost disappointment, that this year we were not given the opportunity to analyze the macroeconomic review and outlook as is customary prepared by the policy unit as annexes to the budget speech, as far as my memory goes. Yes? Why? We have not seen it attached as annexes. That will normally help with the analysis. We just thought we should point that out. If we now go to the estimates of revenue and expenditure for 2022, now we are in the electronic mode, so we no longer have the paper and everything in front of us. So it is, most of us have it on our computer. But if we look at the recurrent revenue, page Roman numeral II, that's number 7. We take this opportunity to applaud the IRD. Labor supports people paying their taxes. That's where the IRD in terms of its collection. Not only this, we encourage compliance. Right? We encourage compliance, and everything must be done to ensure that people who are due to pay the taxes must pay the taxes. That must be done. A review on page 4 now. Probably I don't necessarily need to call it a page, but I don't think we follow. On page 4, a review of the breakdown of the revenue shows that government is collecting more in personal income tax. That is 62.6 million, right, than corporate tax at 43.6 million. Something just can't be adding up here. Right? Something just can't be adding up. Labor calls for tax reform. Yeah. Labor calls for tax reform. We want equity. Most of these companies are given tax breaks and concessions. I mean, we pay more, you're collecting more on personal income tax than corporate tax. Labor proposes a 1% reduction in income tax, in the income tax rate, to allow for more monies to be in circulation. If we agree, and we have all agreed, that the pumping of monies into the economy, because that's what the government is doing for this December, which we welcome. We ask that if you do a reform and have a 1% reduction, it will give a more permanency of monies to be spent in the economy, and that will go well in this period. We look at and here this unemployment and everything is impacting on this. Let's look at government collections. Let's look at 2020. Personal income tax in 2020 was $65.9 million. In 2021, it is $62.6 million so far. In 2021, the government have collected about $3.3 million less than in 2020 in relation to personal income tax. Let's look at value-added tax, which is also linked to income, because when people have income, they spend. Value-added tax, in 2020, $103.5 million was collected. In 2021, $100.5 million. So in 2021, the government collected about $3 million less in value-added tax. The picture here is that government loses monies because people lost their jobs. And not only did they lose their jobs, and we understand it because of the pandemic, and there was also pay cuts, as can be seen through the personal income tax. A sector review, page Roman numeral VII. Infrastructure development, and on the list given, there were infrastructure development as line items, infrastructure development, transport / implementation. Then you had physical development, utilities, and energies. We would like to know what is the difference between the two. We do not understand the difference between the two. We would like to understand the difference between the two, between infrastructure development and physical development. Whether or not there may be double overlap or double counting, just for clarity, we're seeking this clarity. We look under climate resilience and disaster management. We will like to have a breakdown of some of these projects. We would like to get a breakdown of some of these projects. Given the importance of health and education, in terms of building resilience, we are concerned about the vast disparity in the spend on infrastructure versus the spend on education and health. If we agree that the first thing that guided us in the height of the pandemic, I shouldn't have said the height, even before the height of the pandemic reached us, what we said, life. Remember it was about life and health, life, health. We want to see a greater investment in health, because also related to that is the aspect of staffing, the aspect of nurses, the aspect of permanency of our nurses. And these are important in addressing the lives of our people, the health of our people. Issues were raised with the increase in suicides, the increase in the stress levels, etc. These are all health related. These are all health related, and therefore we would like to see us putting our money where our mouth is. That's what it said. We would like to see that. What this will do, as we develop education, as we develop agriculture, agro-processing, the local issues, it will help cushion us against external shock. Let us go back to September 11. September 11 is 2001. Let's September, look at how it impacted us. Look at the financial crisis in 2008, how it impacted us. Look at the pandemic, how it has impacted us. We have all agreed that the high cost of living that we are experiencing today is significantly impacted by imported inflation. And imported inflation, we can't fault the government for its direct impact. What we can do is to fault from the context of not having the local policies, the policies to address the local strengthening of the activities that will help cushion those issues. Because you can also address resilience through education, through virtual. In other words, take SU as a prime example. SU is an export service. SU is an export education service. We bring people in. It's an export service. We can do this. We can take the SU model. We can expand on TAMCC. Why can't TAMCC be also engaged in something like this? So through you, Mr. Deputy President, as we speak about TAMCC, as my dear Senator colleague, Senator Victor Philip, who I want to thank for all the services that you have done to education and our people over the years. Yes, and I know you, through you, Mr. Deputy President, experienced the issue of the government not paying the increments over the years, so it impacted. And we had to take to the streets and fight for it for years. So what the government is paying out to TAMCC is not a handout, it's what is owed. Yes? If we do this and we invest in these issues, it will reduce the impact of external shock. We can also provide service. Accounting service can be provided. We can train our people, make connections with companies abroad, and we can provide accounting services, right, through those means. We go to page Roman numeral VII, and we see that the government has had to, correctly so, suspend the fiscal responsibility law. We see this as a reflection that the law requires a review because it is not conducive to our present reality. Not only this, as we speak right now, the escape clause has allowed for the welcome spending by the government to workers, the monies that have been given. This has now brought, in our calculation, the restricted spending salary allocation of I think it was 9%. It is now over 9%. It's now over 9%. And we have always called for this clause, those two clauses, to be removed, at least removed from the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Negotiations can address those matters. We have demonstrated many years ago, before this act came into place, when we took one-off payments, when we took no payments, no increases, that we have an understanding and an appreciation of what we call patriotism to the country. And to have a law that discriminates against workers and salary negotiation is totally unfair. It's totally, I want to repeat, it's totally unfair. This is what the government is using right now, and we applaud that, and we are saying keep it so. We are saying keep it so. Under page 13, under the aspect of digital and digitalization, we would like to get an update on the progress made. That's on page 13. That's on, yes? We now move to page 1, the summary table. we see an item drawn deposit of 83.6 million. We would like to know what is the balance and what are the different accounts. Okay, these are monies that are there. Drawn deposits are monies that we have. Right? That's what we use from. We would like to know what is the balance and what are the different accounts, because this here basically just gave a report on what has been used. You know what is instructive to you, Mr. Deputy President? Is that while we had to march the streets, while there was the intervention of police on our leaders, while there was the issue of the president of the Grenada Union of Teachers' family being scared because the police came to his house, while there was this issue of the government indicating that they cannot pay the 4% increase, although our information and our review, as we said in the budget debate last year, is that allocations were made for it. And we still maintain that view. Allocations were made in the budget for it. Yes? It is very important to remember that at this time that the government was saying that it did not have any fiscal space to even honor the signed negotiated 4% increase for public officers, these balances existed. That is why Labour speaks about arrogance and vindictiveness, because all of a sudden monies can be found. And I'll go further. It is totally disrespectful. It is totally what one calls an arrogance of power, for the constant repetition that we must not be told that it's not our business where the $200 million come from to pay Grenada. As a matter of fact, it leaves us to speculate that our debt, the level of our debt, it is highly possible it can be inclusive of the $200 million US. And if that is the case, what does that do for us? You see, when you do not give the information, empirical information, it leads to speculation. What is a fact? A fact is that $200 million roughly were paid to WRB. What is a fact? Is that we have not been given the information as to where these monies came from. Yes, that is a fact. This is not a rum shop where you ask somebody something and they tell you, but we get his monies in different places. This is the parliament. This is where we address the people's business. And we have asked to give us something officially to say, well, these monies came from here, there, or where. As a matter of fact, in a program, most recently, it was further advocated that, boy, look, all that we need to pay attention to is that the monies were found. But you see what is also important for us. And through you, Mr. Deputy President, I want to frontally address an issue that was raised relative to the WRB Grenada matter. Labour in the 1990s marched the streets of Grenada and opposed the sale of Grenada. Let me repeat this. Labour in the 1990s marched the streets of Grenada and opposed the sale of Grenada. Labour supported the repurchase of Grenada. Let me repeat this. Labour supported the repurchase of Grenada. What Labour has condemned, and what I shall repeat here today again, is that the manner in which it went about was one that was filled, in our view, with personalities. So through you, Mr. President, I want to address that matter. It was not a principle of repurchasing Grenada. It was the manner in which it was done, and given the personalities that were involved in the national pronouncements and involved in leading the charge, knowing their level of competency, the only thing that can explain that bungle, the only thing that can explain us having to pay probably 50% more than we should have paid, recognizing that the deal made in the 1990s was bad, recognizing that the deal made in the 1990s brought us where we are, recognizing and accepting that, we must accept that the information coming from the relevant government ministries, that in negotiations with WRB, sometime in 2013 or thereabouts, or 2014 thereabouts, when WRB had called for or proposed $8 or $9 a share, and that was not taken up. But we ended up having to pay $17 or $18 a share. That must mean that we are reckless in what we are doing. And in my view, and in Labour view, any CEO in any private company who makes a decision like this will be forthwith asked probably to walk, and probably they'll do it in honor. You can't cost a corporation that amount of money through those kind of decision making. Because when we are in leadership position, we are judged based on our judgment call. We are not there to physically move stuff. We are judged based on the policy positions that we take. So through you, Mr. President, I want to address this thing frontally. We have not said that the buying back of Grenlec is just on the basis of personalities. Yes, personality in our view played a role. But we are not opposed to the repurchase of the WRB shares. We are not opposed to this. As a matter of fact, so not only do we, the measures taken to help cushion the high cost of living, the reduction, the removal of the environmental levy, the removal of the government, the VAT on the first 500 kilowatts, and the reduction on the non-fuel, we welcome this. However, at the same time, we are cautioning that whatever we do must not result in any workers losing their jobs. And that is why it will be extremely important for us to ensure that our boards of directors in the various statutory bodies are made up of people with a level of competence that can manage properly. We already see that whereas before the purchase or the repurchase of the WRB shares, the dividends that the state got ranges from, I think, $300-something thousand, $200-something thousand. I think the most was, I think, $700-something thousand. It has now gone to, in 2020, I think, to $5-something million. Yes, and it is projected, I think, for 2021 at $6-something million. And that's in the right direction because we now control the shares, and that's understandable. And that is what makes it so difficult, Mr. Deputy President, when one keep remembering that we give, as a people, WRB, a company that, as any other private sector company's business was just to take the profits and go, which didn't stay in Grenada to a large extent. We gave them, to our own miscalculations, close to $100 million more than they ought to have gotten from us. At the same time, when our workers had to march the streets, when 4% for a number of workers were not even $40 a month, because there are a number of government workers that were not making $1,000 a month, and 4% of 1,000 is 40. Why? Question that arises. Why put us through this? Why put the workers through this? At the march the streets? Why put us through the rain and the sun? What Leonardo spoke of is the resilience of the trade union movement. That's what he spoke. That's what he spoke to. And this is a call for workers throughout the length and breadth of Grenada to recognize the importance of organized labor. The labor have challenges too, as everybody has. We are not into this for profit. Not into this for profit. I want to commend all organized labor, all the leaders and members who continue to give voluntarily of the service. It is also important, that is on the page LI, Roman numerals LI. How many more minutes? 15? Okay, right. It's also important that the removal of the environmental levy that can impact Grenada solid waste. Given the importance of Grenada solid waste, we need to ensure that measures are put in place, that it does not hinder the ability to perform. We have a concern. We recognize that the debt is rising, and we are, on this basis, we are very concerned, hoping that we do not have to go back to any structural adjustment program. Yes? We see under page 8, work permit revenue. We see that the work permit revenue is rising. The question that begs itself is whether or not what types of jobs are taken, whether or not these are jobs that can be done locally, or if it's a further reflection of the skills mismatch or education mismatch. We, on the Ministry of Labor, that's vote 14. We look forward to the additional 7 staff that has been proposed to be in the Ministry of Labor. We applaud the high percentage of industrial disputes that were able to be resolved without industrial action. And it speaks to the involvement of the Ministry of Labor that went before the Ministry of Labor. And it would be remiss of me, just like how, for instance, you, Mr. Deputy President, that the Ministry, the Agriculture Senator and the government senators complimented the Minister of Agriculture for advancing agriculture concerns, addressing this issue. It's the same minister that heads labor. And that speaks volumes, and I think he must be complimented for that, and the role that he continues to play. But one of the things that I'm missing, the percentage for industrial disputes that are resolved without industrial actions. The industrial action percentage will increase a bit because as we speak, there has been industrial action on the port. Right? That's why I've been absent yesterday. We can't understand for how the like of it that a government entity in particular, and anybody, could sign accepting a recommendation from the Ministry for Labor, signing that they accept, meeting with the organization to work out payment, and then trying to renege on it. I mean, we wouldn't want to say that that seems to be the norm. Okay, remember the issue of the MOU, the pension and the MOU, right? We hope that this is not a norm because there will be the appropriate response. Grenada Ports Authority has been given up to today, the end of the working day today, to resolve this matter. This is not a threat, through you, Mr. Deputy President. But given where we are with COVID and everything else, that whatever takes place on the port after today is totally in the hands of the management. They have accepted, through you, Mr. Deputy President, that they signed and they accepted the recommendation. Key priorities. Given under the key priorities identified by the Ministry of Labor, that is why it is important to ensure that the staffing have been done. We have a concern though that under the Under the key priorities, number 3, under the staffing, we are seeing the staffing, but there isn't the associated breakdown of the salary cost. So we see a total figure. We'd like to know how they come to this total figure. Under Vote 30, infrastructure, page 347. Under key performance indicators, we want an explanation when we see 1,000 contractors to be trained in 2022. We don't know what that means. Is this an indication that the government is seeking to expand contract work? We need an explanation on this. Under health, Vote 50, general hospital doctors. Since that health is a priority, we are concerned that all the positions are not earmarked to be filled. I think that it is important for all the positions in the Ministry of Health, especially general hospital doctors, etc., to be filled. As a means of building resilience, we are proposing that the creative industries be looked at. That is to do with films, videos, recorded music. The advantage of digital export is that you will not be impacted by supply chain, the aspect of the external shock. Remember, this is digital that we are dealing with. The government identified the aspect in the sharp increase in food prices and fuel prices. And all of these are coming from the importation. As we have said earlier, importation, these are external. And as we continue to pay attention to developing our local resources, that will assist in reducing the cost of living to our people. Because a lot of these are associated with the issue of transport, shipping costs. A big concern for Labour. I'm absolutely sure for all patriotic Grenadians, is what one calls the ownership of Grenada by Grenadians. We are very concerned that quite a number of our prime real estate might be falling in the hands of foreigners. And that's where the land use policy comes into play, and big business. You see, 2020, 2035, it's a well put together plan, as I think all of us who participated in it and who have examined it can attest. But if we are not able to influence and manage access to local ownership of our scarce land resources, then it becomes difficult. One of these ways that can be assisted is by making use of the opportunity that COVID-19 has presented to us. COVID-19 has presented a number of opportunities. One of those that we ought to make use of is a realignment of our society, a restructuring of our society. The sanitation workers that has been so important to us are some of the lowest paid workers in this country. The gas station attendants are some of the lowest paid workers. The grocery store workers are some of the lowest paid workers. And that is why Labour has advocated for the review of the minimum wage. The argument has been made that this is not the right time to do it. We hold a different view. And we are saying that the society needs to be restructured and the wages addressed so that our workers can not just maintain their standard of living, but can improve their standard of living We need to have a minimum wage, a wage that will allow people to be able to do some savings, rather than sometimes the people money is finished even before they get paid. To help move our people out of poverty, using the figures that have been given for 2019 of 27%. And it will be higher now. These are structural issues that must be addressed. And this is something that we all collectively must work on. This is not just a call to the government. I want to repeat this. This is not just a call, but obviously you're in governance. And therefore the lead role starts with you. You set the tone and you set the pace. Let's work collectively to get on this. The private sector, the labor movement, government. 5 women, stands. The issue of pension. I heard it been said that pension was resolved. There are 2 aspects. The matter is before the court, so I'm not going there. The aspect of the 1958 Pension Act and its application to current day public servants from 1985 to present is a matter that the court will address. I'm addressing the issue which was said that the pension matter was resolved in 2018. This thing was twinned to the aspect of gratuity. And as someone who played a leading role in that negotiation, I can speak with absolute authority on this. There was no resolution of the pension without the 25% gratuity. And that was reneged on. I repeat, that matter was reneged on. And therefore, it is absolutely incorrect for anyone in authority to stand and say that the pension was resolved. The MOU, which I am totally familiar with and others are familiar with, was twinned. As I said, the aspect of 1958, I'm not addressing that, that is in the court. We have a position that the workers are entitled to this. The court will decide. The issue of contract work, we can only be resilient by ensuring that the nurses and all others are made permanent, given job security. They must be given job security, and it is not enough to just give a month's bonus or a month's extra pay or half month's pay, and we welcome this. No, it's not enough. That is true, it's not enough. Because you know what, it will finish. It will finish. But when you make them permanent and you give them job security, they will be able to develop their life and not depend on just another extra month pay. We call for it to be permanent, but give them some dignity, Mr. Deputy President. Give our nurses dignity. Give our doctors dignity. Let us take a decision to get rid of contract work. Let us, when I say contract work here, there are times that there are need for contract work, and we have said so. There may be a specific task to be done. There may be a specific task to be done. But you can't have someone working, not been made permanent for 10, 15 years, 5 years. As a matter of fact, it's a total violation of the Grenada Labor Code, Section 29.5. The government is the lead violator of this law. And if it requires what was done in Awassa in 2017-18, when Red December was declared. I know we're in a pandemic. But the pandemic will not quarantine the rights of workers. We have had to manage. But we are calling on the government to demonstrate your commitment to the working class, especially where you have control in the public sector, and make all the contract workers permanent and keeping with the law. They have been in the system for the longest while. You praise them and everything. Give them this. This is the best way that you can honor them for what they have done and continue to do. Permanency here, what we speak of, has to do with job security. Give them job security so that they can go to a financial institution and secure a loan or a mortgage to take care of themselves. And you know what is interesting as I wrap up, because I know my time is almost there? Almost every time I listen to the government, and as of more recent vintage, in that other place, whose name I shall not mention, for one moment I thought it was a new government that came into office, you know. When they spoke about the aspect of contract work and they were not aware that this thing was happening, and I'm like, wow. It is better to accept, in our view, that yes, we failed to address this in the manner that we should, and we are not going to do it in a genuine way. No one will believe that the administration was not aware of these problems. And to say that when, after meeting with the nurses, you get to recognize, wow, that problem is bad, that can't be right. We call for honesty, because justice is important. Labour gave its commitment to work in the interest of the country as we continue to do. We end once again by welcoming the relief that is given to the workers, because that is extremely important. That is extremely important. And we thank all the workers for the continued commitment and contribution, especially in these trying times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. We now will take the break for lunch. We will be back here at 3 p.m. to continue the debate. So we now adjourn this session.
Very good.
Yeah, that was
By these points, we're hoping to get about 6.5 meters.